Is project management right for me? This is a typical question I see all over the online forums that people ask themselves before they jump online to ask others, thinking that they'll have some insight about what's best for them. At best, what we can do is provide our experience and our expertise, and that's what I'm here to do today. Hi everyone, my name's Echo and I'm from Your PM Sidekick, and today I'm going to answer your questions and give you a full rundown about all the reasons why a lot of people jump into project management, all that good stuff. I'm going to talk about the not so great, and I'm going to talk about the downright ugly. So stay tuned with me while we talk about all the good stuff in hopes that it will give you a little bit more of an idea of whether or not project management is right for you. Stay tuned. All right, my friends, so let's talk about whether or not project management is right for you. Now, I have a couple notes in front of me that I'm going to make sure that we get through during this video, because I've spent a lot of time not only writing some of my own lists of good, bad, and ugly when it comes to project management, but I've also done a ton of research to make sure that my experiences align with a lot of what other people in the industry feel too. Some people jump into project management as their first career, and others, it's not until it's a second or third career that they stumble upon project management, asking themselves, is this a good option? I'm a new PM. Where should I start? How can I change and go into a project role? And is it the right thing for me? Well, I hope that I can help answer those questions and give you even more food for thought in this video. So first things first, I want to lay the foundation with some common misconceptions that I hear by those who have worked with project managers, or just what you see online, all that garbage about people talking smack about project managers because they've had a bad experience. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about are the 4 key things I hear a lot about project managers, and why if you meet any of these 4 criteria, you're suddenly a perfect match for project management. All right, the first is being organized. So if you have some level of organizational skills, that will certainly help you as a project manager. But being organized does not necessarily mean you're going to be a good project manager, but it is something to consider. Second is being good with people. In my wide-ranging experience, I would say that that is the most important part of project management. So being good with people certainly can help, but just because you're good at working with people doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to withstand the pressure and the amount of work and the type of work that's required for a project manager to do. The next thing I get is, well, if I'm a project manager, I get to be in charge. Wrong! There is some level of authority that a project manager does have on projects. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in charge. Depending on the type of organization and the type of structure of the project, you could be more wrong. Oftentimes, and actually more common than not, the people that are working on your projects have their own managers that they're reporting to. You're trying to get people who don't report to you to listen to you and do what you say on a project, and let me tell you, it's not so fun. Okay, and lastly, the other common misconception is the project managers, they just sit there, they take notes, they coordinate meetings, and their job is done. Yes, sometimes I have to do that. I myself, I don't have a project coordinator to do that for me, but project management is much more than just coordinating some meetings, because that's a simple task that a lot of people could do, and that does not mean that you'll be able to withstand a lot of the responsibilities that a project manager has. All right, guys, what did you think of those 4 common misconceptions? Let's recap. If you're organized, if you're good with people, if you think you're going to be in charge, and if you can set meetings and take great notes, you'll be a project manager. So yes, those 4 things can certainly help you be a project manager, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be the right career move for you. I want to jump into some of the topics and things that we should all consider when going into project management, more of the bad or the ugly. And then we'll also talk about some of the reasons why people jump into this field in the first place and some of the great things that you can expect with a career in project management. All right. So I have a handful of things I want to talk about in terms of some of the considerations or the challenges that a project manager will face while they work on projects. First one is little to no guidance. So let's talk about this for a second. In project management, when you are entering into the field, whether you have some business experience or whether you're just transitioning from one career to another, expect that you won't get that much guidance in terms of training to do your job. To be honest, project managers tend to be pretty brilliant and pretty self-sufficient, and they can figure it out. That's part of the role of a project manager, and that's kind of what they expect through the training. You have to be able to take initiative and take nothing and make it into something, which means you have to be super resourceful, and you have to go out there and you have to ask the right people for what you need in order to be prepared. Now, please don't get me wrong. There are some organizations that I've been a part of and that I've heard other people be a part of that have very thorough training plans. But at some point or another, and usually pretty early on, you are kind of thrown into the gamut and you have to figure it out for yourself. So if you're somebody who doesn't like that, you like a plan, you want outlined of what you need to do, project management may not be the best career field for you. It's not just when you're getting started in the career you get little to no guidance, but even throughout the project, just navigating some of the inner workings of an organization, you have to ask a ton of questions to figure out the answers. You have to hunt things down to get the information that you want. And sometimes you have to make decisions with very little information. So it's something that I want you to keep in mind, because this is something that a lot of people who don't deal with change well and they like the written and organized structure. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing with that. I'm just saying if that's something that could bother you, you may want to think twice about a career in project management. The next thing I want to talk about is the people aspect of project management. I mentioned earlier on in my intro that the people side of project management is the most important. People are the ones who are going to drive the work to get results, to achieve the objectives of the project. And as a project manager, you have to influence people that you really have no authority over to get that work done. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to get 12 adults to get some work done when they're supposed to, it's not a walk in the park. So it's just something to keep in mind. Also, it's not just necessarily internally. It could be with the customer as well. You know, us human beings, we are not logical people by any means. We are very emotional. So you have to deal with a customer who may be under a lot of stress and they react and they take it out on you, and you need to be able to have those conversations and calm them down. And you really just have to be really good with assessing the situation and acting accordingly when it comes to people. And one of the reasons why I like to call this out is because when you're in project management early on, or if you've had a career where maybe you did a lot more independent contributed work, where maybe you don't have to deal with people in a capacity like a project manager, this can be a huge adjustment. It is certainly something that takes a lot of time and experience, and really the only way you get that experience is by being in front of people and doing it. So it's something that is continually an area where project managers have to focus their efforts on, and it can certainly cause stress and be the source of a lot of pressure on projects. The next thing, and kind of related to the second point of people, is politics. So when I talk politics, I'm not necessarily meaning in the sense of voting. I mean it in the sense of everybody having certain wants and needs and requirements and goals and thoughts on a project. And you're trying to balance all these competing needs. And oftentimes, you know, internally there could be internal politics and cliques and things like that, and you really have to figure out how to navigate through all of that to get work done. It can certainly be a lot of noise on projects, and it can cause time and delays. And this is something that honestly I didn't really think was too much of a thing in project management until I got to project management. But certainly, you know, in hindsight, looking back to other roles before I jumped into project management, it was there. There's always clicks. There's always something. So just keep that in mind. You know, it takes a certain kind of person who can navigate through that, who can kind of brush it off their shoulders, not take things personally, and kind of just focus on what needs to be done. And that can be hard. And some people just don't want to deal with it. They're like, hey, I've been in high school once, don't want to do it again, so let's just move on. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Personally, I'm a project manager, and if I could eliminate that piece of the work that I do, I would, but I can't. So I say all this because I think it's important for you guys to know that this exists, and the larger projects that you work on, the number of third parties and different organizations and stakeholders that are a part of a project, the more this occurs. All right, so we've covered little to no guidance, people, politics, and now I want to talk about constant change, uncertainty, and pressure. So I've kind of alluded to a little bit of this, but really what I want to drive home for you guys is that every day is different as a project manager. Funny enough, I was actually scrolling online today, checking LinkedIn like I do, and I came across this quote by Simon Sinek. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I'll put it up here on the screen here. See if you guys can see that. But anyways, it says, always plan for the fact that no plan ever goes according to plan. And when I knew I was going to sit down and film this video today, I knew I had to share that with you. And that's because it's the truth. If you think as a project manager that you can just put a beautiful plan together and it's just going to go according to plan, it's not. Things are always going to change, and you have to be okay with being able to calmly take in the change and respond accordingly. There's a lot of times there's uncertainty, there's change requests that come through, and as much as we try at the beginning of the project to sort through the requirements and the objectives, something always changes. Somebody's not doing their work. A new requirement is unveiled throughout the project. Whatever it may be, things are always changing. And if you're someone who, again, likes more of that guidance, likes that black and white, they want a little user guide that they can follow when they go into work that you may see maybe in more of an operational job. That's not what this is. So, the good thing about it is if you don't like anything that's mundane and boring, project management is not that. It's always exciting. There's always something new. And, I'll cover that in a second when we get to some of the things that people like about project management. But if you're somebody who just doesn't like change and doesn't want to deal with other people going through change, then, it may be something that you need to take a step back and do some self-reflecting and think about whether or not something like this makes sense. The next thing is decision-making. So I did briefly mention this earlier when I talked about project management, and one of the considerations is that sometimes you have little to no guidance. Along the lines of that is decision-making. So project managers, we have to make decisions. And, we're not always the experts. We have a team around us who we seek information from to make sure that we make well-informed decisions. And sometimes we have to make those decisions with a little bit of information, or the most information that we can get from everybody around us. And some people have a really hard time with that. A lot of folks are just very indecisive, and they don't like the pressure of, what if I make the wrong decision? And understandably so. When we're working with larger companies, there's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of responsibility that could be put on you should you make a bad decision. So just something to keep in mind. Again, this is just a consideration. Some of these considerations could be considered bad or ugly in terms of whether or not it's a reason why people wouldn't go into project management. But some of you out there may be like, that's it? That's all? So just take it with a grain of salt. I want this video to be informative, and I hope that's what it's doing. All right, so little to no guidance, people, politics, constant change, decision-making, and I have two more. So the next one is asking questions to problem solve. So you're probably seeing that there's starting to be a little bit of a theme. I keep saying, remember when I said little to no guidance? Remember when I said people? Remember when I said constant change and decision-making? These all kind of go back to asking questions. So specifically talking about decision-making, I don't have all the information. In my specific role as a project manager, my role is to just focus on project management. I don't have to know the depth of the system like some of my other counterparts do. And so I have to ask questions. I have to make sure that people are thinking through the decisions that they're making, because I don't always understand everything, and that's not really my role to know some of the system questions or things like that. It's more so to facilitate the discussion and make sure everything's thought through. So if you're somebody who doesn't like raising their hand and being like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. And you have to challenge some thoughts and ideas. This is a role that really requires that if you want to be a good project manager. Not to say that, the people that you're working with don't know what they're doing, but you have an outside perspective and you're looking at it from a project manager view, which is a lot different than somebody that's in the weeds. And project managers oftentimes see things differently. And that's why, when we come together as a team and everybody has different viewpoints, hopefully we can, approach things in a way where all viewpoints and considerations have been thought through. So you gotta be okay with asking questions, no matter how stupid you think they'll be. And lastly, which I think I also mentioned when we were talking about some of those common misconceptions, is being accountable. You are 100% responsible and accountable for pretty much everything that goes on in a project. I'm responsible if Mary over there doesn't do what she was supposed to do, if Bill doesn't do his work. My responsibility is not just to put out a plan, but to make sure that the plan is getting executed and that the team has what they need to fulfill that work. And so I can be looked at from not just the customer side, but upper management as well, holding me accountable to make sure that all the different spinning wheels and people and actions and timelines and documents and all of these things, they're getting done. And so you have to be okay with knowing that everything could fall on you, good or bad, and that you really have no authority as we're going. So like I mentioned earlier, you can't just say, oh, I get to be in charge. Because the truth is, while you do have some of that authority, these people have others that they report to. So you may have to jump through some hoops to make sure that you can get folks on your team doing what they need to do. And really you have to, as a project manager, have that influence and that motivation to get people to do that. And then know, again, with the politics, know when it's right to, go to their managers, providing this is more of a standard project structure and not like a project-based project or whatever it's called. So accountable with no authority. And that can be hard for people, especially those who have been in management positions before. And, they go into project management thinking that they can tell other people, what to do. As a project manager, there is a certain level of responsibility to the people that you're working with, and they have a certain level of responsibility to you, but not fully. So it's just something to think of, because certainly when you're trying to drive work, you can't fire that person. You can't reprimand them necessarily. So, every organization is different, but just keep that in mind, because you got to get the work done and you're responsible for it at the end of the day. And you have to figure out, with some of those roadblocks and obstacles that are in your way, how you're going to be able to do that. Whew. Okay, so we talked about little to no guidance, people, politics, constant change, decision-making, asking questions to help solve problems, and accountability with no authority. Again, those are 7 considerations that you should think about that could potentially deter you from going into project management, or may just be a walk in the park because you're so brilliant and those things are no sweat off your back. All right, guys, let's end on a more positive note, okay? So I want to talk to you guys about the good. So why some people go into project management in the first place. So I slightly touched on it earlier, but every day is new. I have an idea of what I need to do tomorrow, and I'm pretty sure that only some of that is actually going to happen. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to get the work done that I need to do, because every day is different. My meetings may change. New priorities may present themselves that I have to focus on. So it's not like I, work for, or I have a job where it's the same thing every day, 2 days are never the same. And so for me, that can be a little bit of excitement, and it's something that I hear from a lot of other project managers out there that they also enjoy, because the mundane tasks just don't cut it. The second is creating something from nothing. So, as a project manager, you start with oftentimes, a little sheet of some things that, the project seeks to accomplish. And it's your responsibility to help take a few things on a piece of paper and turn it into a full-blown project that can accomplish some objectives. And for a lot of people, that is a very exciting thing. You get to be a part of something that starts at absolutely nothing, and you get to take it and make it this big thing that really positively impacts a lot of organizations out there. Not only just on the customer side, but also internally if it's a strategic initiative. Another thing that folks enjoy, and one thing that I've learned about us project managers, is we love learning new skills. So in project management, there's always a new methodology or tactic or software or approach to handling difficult decisions, or nowadays doing more virtual meetings. There's always something new that we can learn. So if you have that desire to be picking up new skills, new certifications, new tactics and approaches, and all the things under the sun that you could think of, it is a good career, because there's always continuous learning opportunities, and it's something that can also look really good on a resume as you progress through your career. Kind of just to piggyback off learning new skills, is you also get the opportunity to foster some of your existing skills. So whether or not you are in a role and looking to transition into project management, if you've had some project management experience, maybe you assisted on a project but you're not a full-blown project manager, maybe you have some communication skills or some organizational skills or some planning skills. You can further refine those and take them to a whole new level as a project manager. And that can be really exciting, because project managers have a wide-ranging skill set. And in most organizations, project managers always get thrown into the gauntlet to take care of challenging situations, because they can come out ahead and handle it. And so those are really good skills that you can refine, and it really makes you a good candidate for a lot of leadership opportunities in the future. And lastly, you get to make a difference. You get to add value. If you're just stocking shelves, which is a very important thing, don't get me wrong, or books on a bookshelf, everything, it helps the end user for sure. But, with project management, it directly correlates to a certain value proposition, and you get to see that difference that you make. You get to hear how you're making somebody's life so much easier. Speaking for personal experience, I work in software, and so I hear people having to work from spreadsheets and try to pull together data manually. And when you can put together a system that shows them their cost savings and efficiencies, and can save somebody 10 hours at the end of the month from doing some really crappy end of the month reporting to something that at a click of the button gives them what they need, that's huge. And that's something that really feels good to be a part of. And that's not just to say that in the software realm you get to see that. You could certainly, if you work in construction and you get to help, build a building that gives people jobs and, helps boost the economy and does all of these other things. I mean, there's a lot of different good that comes out of a lot of the projects that we work on, especially those that are more strategic than others. So, that's something personally that, can give you those good feelings, and that's a lot of reasons why people stick around. Another thing that I just thought of that isn't necessarily on the list in front of me here is, there is a lot of opportunity. Project management is a field where, you can acquire these skills and take them with you like a lot of other jobs are, but project management in particular, because you have to have so many tools in your tool chest. They're really transferable, and if you in the future decide you want to look into a different career, I guarantee that a handful of the skills, if not all of the skills that you have as a project manager, will do you some good in your next role. Project management is also one of those fields where oftentimes you can, work from home. You can do a lot of there's remote opportunities. Sometimes there's flexibility and opportunity to travel. And I know that is desirable nowadays for a lot of people, and it's certainly a field where you can do that. I am remote 100% of the time, almost. I do travel to client sites, but for the most part, I am remote. I've had jobs where I was on site in a home office and then traveled, and it's really nice. So guys, I think that's it for today's video. Again, we talked about some of those common misconceptions of if you're organized and you're good with people and you get to be in charge, if you take notes and you can do some meetings, that you're a great project manager. And again, those are good indications, but they are surface level. So don't let those be the only, things on your list that if you check all of them off, you're going to be a good project manager. Because, as we talked about, there's some other considerations that you really need to put some thought into, which are, can you handle little to no guidance? Are you okay with, working with different people with different needs and, managing the politics in the workplace? Can you deal with change and uncertainty and oftentimes a lot of pressure? Are you good with making decisions with little information, asking questions, and being accountable with absolutely no authority? I mean, these are all things that you really need to put some thought into. But again, for a lot of us out there, the difference that we can make, the new skills that we can learn, being able to create something from nothing and making sure that every day isn't a repeat, the flexibility and the fact that these skills can take you everywhere. It's certainly a field that you're certainly going to want to consider. So I hope that in this long half an hour ramble that I gave you some really good food for thought. So the next time you ask yourself, am I cut out for project management? You'll have a better sense of whether you can answer that question for yourself. All right, guys, until next time, my name's Echo at Your PM Sidekick, and I hope you stay tuned and subscribe and are part of a lot of the upcoming content and videos that we have. And as always, if you're questioning whether you're cut out for project management, please leave me a comment down below and I will be happy to respond and give you some additional guidance. And hopefully you'll make the best decision for yourself. And as always, you always have a friend in project management. Thanks, guys.